In 1970, a social worker walked into a house in Los Angeles and found a 13-year-old girl who could not speak. She had spent most of her life tied to a potty chair in a room with the curtains closed, never hearing another human voice. Her name was Genie. What scientists discovered afterward became one of the most important and most disturbing case studies in the history of psychology. There is a window early in life when the human brain is built to absorb language. Linguist Eric Lenneberg called it the critical period. He believed it closed somewhere around puberty. If a child does not acquire language before that window closes, he theorized, they may never fully acquire it at all. Nobody wanted to test that theory on purpose. Jeannie tested it by accident. When she was found, she had no language at all, not even baby talk. Teams of linguists and psychologists moved in almost immediately. This was the case that could prove or disprove the entire theory. For years, they worked with her, patiently, carefully. She learned words quickly, hundreds of them, but something never came. She could say, Jeannie, go park. She could not say, I want to go to the park. The grammar, the structure, the invisible architecture that turns words into language never fully formed. Linguist Susan Curtis, who studied her for years, documented it in exhaustive detail. Jeannie could store words. She could not build sentences. It was as if part of her brain had simply closed the door before she ever got the key. This is the part that should unsettle you. Language is not something you learn the way you learn to ride a bike. It is something your brain is built to expect, on a strict and silent deadline. Miss that deadline, and a part of being human closes behind you, permanently. But Genie is not the only case. Across the world, in Romania, a different experiment was unfolding. Not designed, inherited. After a regime collapsed in 1989, the world discovered tens of thousands of children living in state orphanages, rows of cribs, infants who were fed and changed, but rarely held, rarely spoken to, rarely looked in the eye. Scientists realized this was a horrifying opportunity to answer a question no ethical experiment could ever test on purpose. What does the absence of human connection actually do to a developing brain? The Bucharest Early Intervention Project began in the year 2000. Researchers took institutionalized children and randomly assigned some to foster care, and left others in the institutions, then followed them for years. This was the first randomized trial of its kind in human history. What they found rewired how we understand the human brain. Children left in institutional care showed abnormal brain development, measurable, visible on a scan. Their stress hormone systems were dysregulated. Their attachment systems failed to form normally. Many displayed behavior that looked, on the surface, like autism. Indiscriminate friendliness toward total strangers, an inability to distinguish who was actually safe. But here is the detail that mattered most. Timing. Children moved into foster care before the age of 2 showed dramatically better brain development than children moved after age 2. 2 years old. That was the line. Cross it without connection, and recovery becomes a fight against your own neurology. Stay below it, and the brain has just enough flexibility left to rebuild what it almost lost. This is not a story about cruelty in either case. It is a story about a hidden biological clock that almost nobody knows is running. You assume your personality, your language, your ability to connect with other people simply unfolded naturally, automatically, like growing taller. It did not. It was built, piece by piece, by every voice that spoke to you, every face that looked back at yours, every moment somebody responded when you reached out. If those moments are missing during a specific narrow window, the architecture does not just develop slower. In some cases, it does not develop at all. Genie was eventually removed from the research program. The scientific community fractured over how she was treated. She spent the rest of her life in institutional care. She never fully gained language, not in over a decade of trying. Some of the Romanian children, the ones moved early enough into real human connection, went on to live ordinary lives. The same starting point. Two different outcomes, decided almost entirely by timing. Every interaction you are having right now, the eye contact, the tone of a voice, the simple act of someone responding when you speak, is something your brain expected to receive on a schedule you never agreed to and never knew existed. You got it. That is the only reason you can understand this sentence at all.